Okay, the next step to write triangle proofs is to start thinking about which one of those 5 theorems we can use to prove that the triangles are congruent. So I'm going to rewrite the 5 theorems over here on the side. There was side, 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 angle, side, angle, side, angle, 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 side, and HL. Okay, so I'm going to do a few of these with you. There's some given information in each picture. So what you need to do is mark that information into your diagram and then see if there's anything else you can mark with the reflexive property or vertical angles. Those are usually the 2 extra things that you can mark in your picture. Okay, so the first thing says JK is congruent to NM. So this side is congruent to this side. So you mark that by putting a tick on each of those sides. Then it says JL is congruent to NL. I've already used 1 tick, so I have to put 2 ticks on that one. And then the last thing, it says L is the midpoint of KM. I know that means L has to be exactly in the middle of these 2. So these sides have to be the same. Perfect. So if I was to choose one of these, we've got 3 sides here, 3 sides here. This is side, side, side. And that is what we do for that one. Okay, this symbol here means parallel, and we have not learned about parallel lines yet, so I'm going to cross that one off. The next one says KM and JN bisect each other. That means that those 2 are cutting each other in half. So KM and JN cut each other in half. That means L is the midpoint of both of those lines. So I'm going to mark those 2 parts have to be the same, and these 2 parts have to be the same. Okay, so that's all we can mark with the given information, but you should notice that this looks like a bow tie, so I can mark the vertical angles. Let's see here. So now I have 2 sides and an angle. The angle is in between the 2 sides. So here we have the angle is in between the 2 sides. This is side, angle, side. Okay, the next one, it says BD is perpendicular to AC. So that means these 2 are perpendicular. They make a right angle. So that is a right angle on both sides. D is the midpoint of AC. D is right in the middle, so these have to be the same. And that's all you can write with the given information, but you should have noticed that these 2 triangles share a side, so I can mark that that side is congruent to itself. Now I have 2 sides and an angle mark. A lot of people get confused and think, okay, that's a right triangle, so we're probably going to use HL. For HL, you have to use the hypotenuse, which is the one that you can find by drawing an arrow starting at your right angle. It'll be pointing at the hypotenuse. So you'll notice that the hypotenuse is not marked here, so we're not going to use HL. We have 2 sides and an angle. This is the same situation as this problem. The angle is in between the 2 sides. So this is side, angle, side. Okay, the next one, PQ is perpendicular to QS, means this is a right angle. TS is perpendicular to SQ, means this is a right angle. QS bisects PT, means this and this are the same because QS is cutting PT into 2 equal pieces. And that's it for the given information, but you see it's a bow tie, so these 2 angles are the same. So I have 2 angles and a side, so you have 2 options. It's got to be one of these 2. If you have 2 angles and a side, it has to be congruent triangles. It's going to be one of those. So all you have to figure out is the side in between the 2 angles, or is it next to them? If I put my fingers on these 2 angles, we've got R marked and Q marked. Between my 2 fingers is this side right here, this QR. So that is not, this side is not in between those 2 angles. So it's AAS. The side is next to the 2 angles. Okay, let's try this one. If BD bisects angle ADC, that means this line is cutting this angle into 2 equal pieces. So we can mark it like that. Then it says DB bisects angle ABC, that's this angle. So I can mark those two are the same. Okay, with 2 arcs. And that's it for the given information, but you should see that we can use the reflexive property that each triangle shares that side. So this is 2 angles in a side. Once again, if I put my finger on each of the angles, the side in between my fingers is this one that's marked. So that means this is A, S, A. Let's try a few more. Number 7, that's a parallel sign. We haven't done parallel yet, so we're going to skip that one. Number 8, KM is perpendicular to JL. So that means this is a right angle, this is a right angle. It says JK is congruent to LK. I know that this shares this side, so I'm going to mark that. Okay, so this one we have to figure out if it's SAS or HL. It's a right triangle, so we can use HL. So I'm going to once again look for the hypotenuse. If I start my arrow at the right angle, I'm pointing at this side, which I have marked. So that is the hypotenuse. And this is a leg of the right triangle, because anything that's not the hypotenuse at any side is a leg in a right triangle. So this one is HL. Okay. This one, BD, is the perpendicular bisector of AC. So let's start with the perpendicular part. BD will be perpendicular to AC. And then it's bisecting AC, which means these two are the same. Then we use the reflexive property to mark those two, that line that they share. We have 2 sides in an angle. It is a right triangle, so you can check do we use the hypotenuse? And no, we do not with this one. So we have 2 sides in an angle. The angle is in between the 2 sides, so this is side angle side. Next, AB is congruent to CD. BC is congruent to DA. And then they share a side. So this is side, 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 because all 3 sides are marked. Number 11 uses a parallel sign again. So we're skipping that. 12, FG is perpendicular to GI, which means that's a right angle where they meet. JI is perpendicular to IG, so there's a right angle there. FH is congruent to JH. Okay, and then GH is congruent to IH. Okay, we've got a right triangle. We have 2 sides in an angle, so it's either got to be HL or side angle side. If I start an arrow at my right angle, I am pointing at this side, so this side is the hypotenuse. And that's why I am using the hypotenuse. This is a leg, it's a right triangle, so this is HL. Let's see here. Number 13. If C is the midpoint of AE, that means this and this are congruent. C is also the midpoint of BD. That means those two are congruent. And then I can tell it looks like a bow tie, so we have that marked. Okay, we have 2 sides in an angle. The angle is in between the 2 sides, so this is side angle side. And the last one is, given that MH is perpendicular to HT, that is right angle here. MA is perpendicular to AT, that's a right angle. TM bisects angle HMA, so these 2 angles are the same. And then I can mark that both triangles share this side. So we have 2 angles and a side, so it's either AAS or ASA. Put your finger on each of the angles. The side in between those 2 angles is this side right here. That's not this side, so this side is next to them, not in between them. So it's AAS. Okay, practice some on your own.